Okay, so as you guys know from the giant image on your screen right now, today we are going to be discussing customer support automation and how you can implement it using a chatbot. And we think that this is a particularly salient topic in the present moment because in the wake of the COVID-19 crisis, we've had a lot of conversations with our customers and just with a lot of people in a lot of entrepreneurs in general about how customer support has been one aspect of business that's been particularly badly hit um, by by this crisis because all of a sudden people were working from home. All of a sudden people couldn't actually go into the office, rightfully so in my opinion. But all of a sudden people couldn't go into the office, and as a result whole customer support centers, whole customer support operations went down pretty much overnight, and a lot of companies were scrambling to get something set up in response. And we'll get into this a little bit later, but we hope that through this webinar, you learn how you can use chatbots to essentially avoid situations like this, and a couple of other issues that exist with traditional customer support systems. Um, so with that, let's get this session started. So as I was telling some of the people who were on earlier, we initially had planned this webinar to happen with 3 hosts. Akshati was going to join us, but she is not feeling well today, so she's not with us today. It's just Levi and I. In terms of who we are, I see that we have a lot of people who are repeat attendees from previous webinars, so specifically the webinar we had earlier this week. So a lot of you guys have already heard this spiel before, but I figure for the newer attendees, we can still give it to them. So I'm Arnav. I've been around at DARS for about 4 years now, building chatbots, but primarily serving as a content marketer where I make content just like this to help other marketers learn more about chatbots. So webinars, blog posts, videos. If you go to the DARS blog or the DARS resources page, you'll see a lot of my face around. And my co-host today, someone I'm super excited about, Levi, do you want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. So I'm Levi. I've been building on TARS for about 4 years, just coming up on it. And my first build, which we're going to talk about pretty extensively during this webinar, was for the Montana DMV. So making it easier to get your license or license plates for your car. I saw an opportunity there to radically change the way that was done. And so that's how I got my start in chatbots, was just really from the ground up building that system, and just haven't really looked back since then. I fell in love with chatbots, and this has been my life pretty much for 4 years since then.
Yep. As with all great love stories, yours began in the DMV.
Absolutely.
Where all great love stories begin. But yeah, as Levi said, we'll be getting into his experience building the Montana DMV chatbots pretty heavily in this webinar, because we figure that if you can fix the customer support issues of a DMV, you can probably fix the customer support system of pretty much any company. Sorry, I had to pop out of my slides there for just a second. I'm actually realizing I can't see the chat. There we go. I just wanted to make sure I can see the chat. In case you guys have any questions, you guys should definitely drop them in the chat or drop them in the Q&A so that we can respond to them. In terms of who we are as a company, so Levi and I just mentioned that we've both been building, creating content on DARS for some time now. DARS is a company that primarily focuses on helping customers boost their conversion rates using conversational technology, specifically chatbots. And we've been doing that since about 2016. Now, usually what that looks like is replacing a boring lead capture form with a chatbot. If you look at our previous webinars, they primarily focus on the lead capture use case. So how can you make people go through the entire lead generation flow in higher rates by switching from a form to a chatbot? But customer support is something that we've also been been into since 2016 because a lot of people want to use chatbots for customer support. And we found that customer support is a key tactic for lead gen. So we've always paid pretty close attention to it. A lot of prospects who land on our customers pages usually have a doubt before they're willing to convert. So invariably, we've had to put on our customer support hats and create pretty complex customer support flows to essentially convince people to share their details with us. So a lot of the information that's coming through in this webinar is coming from that experience and also Levi's experience with the DMV, which is, again, invaluable. So with those intros out of the way, I think we're ready to go on to the important stuff, the actual content of this webinar. And I think a good place to start is to look at what traditional customer support systems are. So what non-chatbot customer support systems look like, and then take a look at what's missing in each one of those to figure out what exactly the value of chatbots are. So broadly speaking, customer support systems, non-chatbot customer support systems can be split into essentially two types in most cases. There are human-based systems, so those are things like call centers and live chats, and then there are text-based systems, which are FAQs and help docs. Now, starting with the first one, human-based customer support systems are the gold standard of customer support, or they have been for a long time. And there's pretty good reasons for that. Human-based customer support systems, just because human beings are smart creatures, are highly engaging. So when you're talking to a human being, they can add their own personal touch to that conversation. They can direct the conversation in very specific directions to make the experience better for you. And they can troubleshoot pretty complex issues. So if you ask a human being a very niche issue, even if they don't know how to solve it, they know how to go about. And I'm saying they, like I'm not a human being, but we know how to. I swear to God, I'm not an alien. So we actually know what to do to figure out how to solve that issue. We can raise the issue to a higher up who might know how to solve it. We can raise a ticket with 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 the technical team. We know what resources to look at. We can read through them. We can understand them, and we can address those issues. And that makes human beings a great customer support option. If you have access to a call center, if you have access to a live chat, they are a great option to go with because human beings can pretty much handle anything. The only issue is that they are also prohibitively expensive. So a lot of small businesses can't afford to actually implement human-based customer support systems. A lot of big businesses struggle with this as well because they're dealing with such a high volume of customer support tickets that they can't really keep up with the costs. I mean, when you're talking about setting up your own customer support system, you're talking about paying payroll, HR, office space for the customer support agents. And even if you outsource any of this stuff, you're implicitly paying for all of those things in the fee that you pay the outsourcing agency, and you're paying a pretty healthy markup on all of that to the agency in the form of their margins. And usually what ends up happening is the service you get from from an agency you outsource to isn't as good because they aren't focused on just your company. They don't know your company just as well as a dedicated customer support person would. So essentially it's either prohibitively expensive or you're compromising on quality. And that's not even to count the sort of intangible costs that you have with a customer support system. So that can be in the form of stress, actually dealing with a lot of human beings, dealing with a very human intensive operation can be super stressful. Other than the fact that HR is expensive to implement in a lot of cases, it's also super stressful to implement. If you've done any amount of HR right now at DARS, for example, our primary goals, the primary things which the founders are focusing on is HR, and it's a very time intensive, stress intensive, intensive field to be in, and that takes a toll on your mental well-being. And the other issue with human-based customer support system is that there can be long wait times. So unless you spend all the money in the world to get enough customer support agents, such that even when you're at peak load, even when the most number of people possible are calling your customer support helplines or initiating chats with your live chat system, and you have a customer support agent to deal with all of them, which costs a lot of money. Unless you're in that situation, people are going to have to wait for a customer support agent to become available. And everyone's been on hold before. It's not fun. So even though the human-based customer support system is going to is going to deliver an engaging experience for you and be able to troubleshoot your highly complex query, you are probably going to have to wait some amount of time before you can actually get on the phone or get on the live chat with them. And no one likes doing that. Levi, maybe you can speak a little bit to how these issues manifested themselves in the DMV, because I'm sure they were huge issues over there.
Yeah, I mean, just to throw in a little anecdote, I guess, or anecdote, and not an antidote. Well, chatbots are the antidote, but particularly on the DMV side, there was a lot of burnout. Like a lot of positions in the call center would recycle and people would quit. Happen constantly. So there's another level to this that's not actually even. It's kind of in between the lines of what is on this slide, which is if you lose employees, then you have to retrain from the ground up, and training costs a lot of money, and it takes a long time for that human agent to be good enough to actually solve these customer issues. It's not just, you can't just put anybody in a seat and they can answer the questions. So there is another level to this, and with call centers, burnout and churn rate is a real problem. It's a problem they've been facing for decades, and it continues to be an issue because of the stress and the workloads and dealing with people that are usually not very happy. It takes a toll for sure.
Right. Yeah, that's something people definitely do not talk about much. Customer support is a very thankless job because you're generally dealing with people who have had something go wrong with their experience. So they're generally not in a good mood, and they usually take that anger out, if at all, on the customer support agent who they're dealing with. Even though the customer support agent probably has nothing to do with the actual issue and is actually just there to help them, they take it out on them. And customer support can be a super thankless job. So it really goes to show that these intangible costs over here, and actually for that matter, the monetary costs could actually be higher than we did over here. And then we also have things which are particularly bad. So the ugly of human-based customer support. And this point is particularly salient in the current moment. As I was mentioning in the introduction, human-based customer support systems, they're generally reliant on specific customer support centers or specific offices, even if they're sitting in your offices to function. And if there's a hurricane, if there's an earthquake, or if there's a global pandemic like we're in right now, your human-based customer support operation can get easily disrupted. I mean, I think the common saying "shit happens" is absolutely true in the context of human-based customer support systems. It's highly unlikely that any of these outcomes happen, but when they do, they can really take a toll on your human-based customer support system. And if you don't have an alternative, you find yourself in a bit of an issue where you can't address the queries that your customers have, even though they're having them, and that makes them even more frustrated. I know that I've heard stories from our customer success team, who are not customer support, actually having a conversation with them yesterday. They're very clear about the distinction. But I was having a conversation with them, and it turns out, and with our sales team, and it turns out that some of our customers who work for even much larger enterprises, and these are enterprises which all of us have probably heard about. So these are people you expect to face issues with dealing with something like this, because they essentially have an endless supply of money to throw at the problem. But they faced the issue where all of a sudden they were working from home, and then their decision makers in charge of marketing and sales decisions, the people who actually discuss and implement chatbots, couldn't had to put all of their conversations with us on hold, essentially because they were dealing with some issues with their customer support, which is perfectly understandable. Dozens of our customers have been have told us that they are dealing with this issue in the present moment, because all of a sudden their existing systems had to change, and customer support is one of those systems that's completely dependent on location, which obviously got disrupted by this pandemic. In fact, we have a case study which maybe I'll open up a little later, that doesn't deal with the whole pandemic, but we have worked with, and we continue to work with, a company that sells prescription swimwear, and they address the needs of people all over the world. They ship to all over the world. But their customer support center is in Florida. And what happened was, when Hurricane Irma hit, their customer support center went down. And essentially they had to give you a little bit of a spoiler for later on in the webinar, they had to use a chatbot to pick up the slack while their customer support system was down, because the hurricane hit. Now, if they had not had that chatbot in place, their customer support system would have been completely knocked out until officials could sort of rebuild the area and get everything working as it was, and wait for the hurricane to pass. Levi, I don't know if you've ever had an experience like that in the DMV while you were there, with a particularly bad show.
Well, I mean, they're in it now. I mean, it is happening now to them, right? So there's a lot of things going on, and just like everywhere else, and they are in a position, though. They were lucky enough that they already have a fully automated online customer support system, chatbot system. So it has, and that's kind of the idea of this, right? So the difference is, if you already have one, when these things come up, you're already positioned to handle the situation. You're already, even if you lose your call center for a day, well, the chatbot is at least still there, still collecting and helping customers, and potentially collecting their questions that a live agent has to answer because they're complex. But at least they're being logged and stored, and when that call center can come back online, or when the solution can be solved, they're ready to then start responding to those customers. And that's something that we've talked about numerous times. Chatbots don't replace people; they assist them. They're another layer to making their jobs easier.
Absolutely.
The business being, interact with customers 24/7, which most cannot have a call center open 24/7. Even government, I mean, there's no way they don't have people on the line all through the day and night. So, and they sometimes can throw some money at it. I've seen some pretty hefty, there's some pretty hefty organizations out there that can throw a lot of money at call centers, and they still cannot justify a 24/7 open line. So that's, having this in place supports, through all issues that come up, supports those folks, no matter what. So as far as it's going, it seems like the system's holding strong, helping them through it, and they're way better off because they had it in place already.
Right. And to speak to your point, there are a couple of things to mention. One, no matter how much money you throw at it, even if you invest a lot of money in it, when something as big as what's happening right now, or even a natural disaster happens, no matter how much money you've thrown at your human-based systems, they're going to go down. And for example, in today's crisis, it's affecting the entire world pretty severely. So regardless of where those customer support agents are based, you're going to be affected. And the second thing is, I think it seems almost like customer support feels like an induced demand problem, where even if you increase your capacity, there's always additional customer support tickets that get generated to fill that capacity almost immediately when you expand lanes on the highway. I don't know how that happens. It's almost like customers can sense when you're investing more. they can sense the fear, and they're certainly looking at that. Um, but yeah, now moving on to the second traditional approach that people use, text-based customer support. Now, most people have thought of text-based customer support as the solution to some of the issues we were just talking about with the human-based customer support systems. So text-based customer support systems, they're super cheap because all you need to do is set up a page on your website which answers a bunch of FAQs, which has a bunch of help docs about your stuff. It requires an initial investment of time, but it's super cheap. I mean, if you have a couple of weekends spare, a couple of people from your team can sit together, prepare those FAQs, prepare those help docs, and you're done. They require no effort after setup. So as I mentioned, you set it up once, and then you're done. You can update it from time to time if you have new features, if you have new offerings, if new questions start to arise. Um, but it's a pretty cheap, low effort option to customer support. And the best part is that it's always available. So regardless of what's going on in the world, your text-based system is always going to be up. Your FAQs don't really have to stay at home and social distance. Your help docs don't have to do that either. So they're always going to be up. They are not going to be affected by shocks. They're not going to be affected by work. So they'll be available 24/7 by 365. Now the issue with text-based systems, and I think this is a pretty bad issue that most people don't really talk about, is that they're super unengaging. Uh, Levi, I know you have a lot of experience dealing with text-based systems because this is primarily, I think, what the DMV used to use. So do you want to speak to this point a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, so I was actually hired as originally as a technical writer, and this was like my whole job, right? Was how to convey static information better to citizens that were using the services. So I worked on hundreds of forms, hundreds of paper forms that would be filled out because the DMV this government in general is especially still not paperless. Um, and in that was, you know, all these struggles of how do we convey the correct information, how do we help people through these forms. I got really good at making forms and being very concise with the language to help folks through it. And up until that, I mean, they didn't have a writer on staff. It was a special hire. They brought me on. I did that. I did a bunch of the website stuff, working through that. And that experience really was a good groundwork, the groundwork for what would come later with chatbots, understanding the text side of it. But yeah, people almost never used our FAQs. They really weren't on target. Or if to make them on target, you would have to have this like endless page that you'd scroll through, right? Nobody was really finding what they were looking for, and your eyes glaze over every time you start scrolling through a web page anyways. So FAQs are really ultimately pretty ineffective unless you only have a few. Well, depending on your business and what you're doing, I mean, people usually have more than a few questions. You can capture some commonly asked ones, but you're really missing out on a big segment of your users and the questions they have. So text can get a little tricky, and a lot of people don't have writers, and writers, that, I mean, that's their job, right? They're here to help convey that information to the point where the users can easily read it and consume it. Static content just doesn't work that well on websites. I mean, we know this, we've talked about it numerous times, but yet our experience online hasn't changed much in decades, right? Decades, it's been static text down a page, and that's how we've presented this information, and we found very low retention rate, very low just interaction, right? People even going there and looking at it.
Right.
So from my experience, that's the problem, really. The bad of static content is it's just not easy to consume.
Right.
and it's
It's not easy to
easier.
consume and it's not easy to create, as you mentioned. I hadn't even thought about that aspect of it. I mean, even from a marketing standpoint, when we're trying to create we try to solicit guest posts from people. I said not everyone's a writer. And writing requires some serious effort. It requires some serious training, which a lot of people don't think to be true, which is a little. And the end result can be messaging that's super unengaging or super hard to understand. In the context of customer support, you need to be extremely clear, extremely concise to actually troubleshoot someone's problems. It's almost like, I don't know if you've ever tried this exercise. I don't remember what class in college it was that I had to do this exercise for, but it's like you have to try to explain to someone like everything extremely literally how they can make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And it's actually a lot harder than you think.
Yes.
You need to be very, very specific about how you're going about doing that. And doing that over text, doing that when you're not speaking to someone, like a human-based approach, you need to write all of that down in a way that people will actually read, which can be super difficult to make extremely long, which again reduces the number of people who are reading it. So now our metaphor for, sorry, go ahead, Levi.
I was just going to say, it brings up another good point, which I like to talk about a lot too, is if your FAQ or if your response, that static text, involves a process, like a multi-step process to answer the question, oh man, does it get really tough then. Not only is it hard to explain that process, but how many people skip step 2 or 4,
Right,
and just read what they want to, and
right,
then, but because they skip those steps, they fail at what they're trying to accomplish. So this is a huge
right,
problem, really across the board. If there's any process to it, it is so hard to convey that in static text.
right. And the other issue with that is, I mean, I'm guilty of this myself. Is you skim through things when you see something that's maybe 5 or 6 steps long. It's a giant text, and the automatic instinct is to just skim over it to see the basics of what's there in that text. You're not reading in detail what the people actually said. You're just like glancing your eyes over it and seeing what you get out of it, which isn't really the best way to go about troubleshooting a customer support issue. And invariably what ends up happening is you aren't able to actually address the issue in a lot of cases. With that, we don't really have an ugly when it comes to customer support. We thought the bad was pretty bad. Sometimes the metaphors just don't work out. But with that, we kind of have a sense of what the issues the customer support people and entrepreneurs face when it comes to implementing an efficient customer support system. Either you're choosing the effective, engaging, but an easily disruptible human-based approach, or you're choosing between the unengaging, often ineffective, but cheap and reliable text-based approach. So how do you weigh out these pros and cons of both of them? That's the question that most customer support executives have to deal with. And traditionally, the answer has been to adopt a mixed strategy, to do both things, because the idea is that while people are waiting, I'm sure you've seen this before, when you try to jump onto a phone call with people, when they're giving you those automated options where they're like press 1 or press 2, or you're jumping onto a chat, they usually try to read directly to their online resources. They're like, if you haven't already checked it out, check out our online resources. Someone might have already asked your question and we might have addressed it. And the idea is that if they can get enough people to go over to the online services, which are super cheap for them to implement, that reduces the load on their human-based customer support system. So the wait times go down. The amount of customer support agents they have to allocate goes down as well, and it addresses some of those issues. In an ideal world, it would actually address both of those. It would address the problems of both issues, right? It would take the best of both of the methods, but that's not usually what happens. In fact, the opposite happens. Usually what ends up happening is you end up with the downsides of both approaches. You have a system that is unengaging, that's backing up a system that's expensive and disruptible. And that doesn't really work for most people. See that we are getting a question here, but I can't seem to see the question. So
It's actually just that your voice has been breaking up on and off.
I see, I see. Um,
Yeah, so you may have to kill your video if it persists, maybe,
yeah,
and that might
yeah.
help.
Sounds good. Levi, just let me know if it does continue breaking up, and I will kill my video. We're anyways getting
Okay.
well, we're getting to the punchline. We're going to be talking about chatbots in just a second over here. But we're here to tell you in this webinar that there is a better way to resolve this issue, and that way is chatbots. Chatbots are, you can think of them as the sort of ideal middle ground between text-based and human-based systems. They achieve the impossible of bringing together the best of both systems. So first of all, they're super engaging, just like a human system. They are relying on this conversational engaging with people. This is the which we'll take a look at in just a minute on the right over here. So they take advantage of this natural back and forth means of communicating that human beings are used to, because we chat with our friends and family every single day. We have conversations with people every single day. So we're used to having conversations with people. It comes very naturally to us. We find it engaging, and we take advantage of that. So in that sense, they are super engaging. They can create experiences that people are actually clued into, that they're actually paying attention to. One way to think about it is just like Levi and I were talking about in terms of having long pieces of text that people don't want to read. In a chatbot-based customer support system, they are at max reading a couple of tweets worth of text at a time. So you're sending them a couple of messages and then waiting for them to respond. Now that's not too much for them to read. It's super digestible. It's super consumable. And what we've seen is people end up actually reading the stuff that you're sending them. So even if you take the exact same text that you have in your help doc and you split it up into messages that are punctuated by user input, so even the user just hitting next or continue in the chat, people actually read a lot more of the stuff you're sending them, because you're not sending them this massive wall of text like you would with an FAQ page or help doc. Another advantage of them is that they can explain complex concepts. And there is a caveat to this, but just like Levi was saying, you have you can build out these very complex flows using branching. If you were there for our previous webinar, a lot of the stuff we said over there in relation to lead generation is applicable to the customer support use case as well. You can implement pretty complex systems where you troubleshoot issues based on specific circumstances that the users are facing. So maybe you walk them through the first 3 steps, and then after the 3rd step, some people see a certain message and other people face another message. And depending on what they see, you can direct them in a completely different direction. But you got a lot of work with this, right? In terms of creating these complex branching flows in your systems to address these issues.
So yeah, so I'll say you probably should turn off your video, and we'll see if that helps your audio. It's not as bad as it was, but it's still breaking up.
Absolutely.
And we do have a live Q&A
right.
or a Q&A up here.
Right.
So I can just jump in and answer this really quick. The question is, are you working on voice to text and text to voice? We do have on our product roadmap, we do have voice as a feature that is scheduled to come to the platform. I'm not exactly sure what the time frame is. Do you know, Arnav?
I'm not sure. I think they have their hands full with a couple of other features right now, but
right.
But it's definitely on the roadmap. Maybe if we have Beneath on the call with us today, they can address it. But I'm not sure how much you guys heard of what I was saying. But essentially, you can create a lot of the stuff we were talking about in our previous webinar. You can apply those to this webinar as to customer support use cases as well. So if you create complex branching flows, you can address niche queries that people have, or you can step people through complex processes. So say after the first 3 steps in the process of troubleshooting an issue, half of the people face one error message and the other half faces success, or they face another error message, you can split off your customer support flow at that point to address both of those issues. And that allows you to address a lot of complex queries that people have. Now, there is a caveat to this. As Levi was mentioning earlier, chatbots are still not at the point where they can rival humans. So if there is a particularly niche issue that's not built into their internal logic, they won't be able to address that. But like Levi said, they can do a pretty effective job. They can do a pretty effective job at addressing enough of the generic, easily addressable queries to free up your human customer support agents to address the more niche queries. So the way we think about it is, if you can address 70% of the easily addressable, the quick FAQs that people have that they're not going to read through an FAQ page, then that leaves a remaining 30% that your human customer support agents actually have to deal with. And that's a considerable reduction in their workload, even if you're not completely automating away all of the queries.
Yes.
Another advantage.
And this,
Yep. Sorry. Go ahead.
This actually goes into the FAQ that we were talking about, right? The FAQ can only answer a particular, so you have a question up there and an answer. But when there's multiple conditions to that question, like for example, this GIF is actually perfect because it does explain there's a condition to renewing your license. There's actually more than one condition to renewing your license. So where do you fall helps the determine the answers that you need to get or where you need to go. And this has always been had to been handled by a live person, because there's no way that I mean that it's explained on a web page somewhere on the DMV, but nobody read that. Like nobody read that. And so they would schedule appointments, they would show up, and then they'd get turned down, or they'd be like, oh, you have to retest. You can't even do this. You have to schedule an appointment for testing. Your license is expired. You have to start from scratch. You want to talk about an angry customer? Somebody who had to schedule an appointment, wait for it, show up, and then be told they can't do anything, and they have to go reschedule an appointment and come back whenever that date is. That is a terrible customer experience. So without the chatbot, this was actually happening quite a lot. And this is just one of many examples, right, that would occur through daily interactions, which would cause massive ripples. It would waste the time of employees. It would waste the time of customers. It was just a nightmare, and it drove up wait times. It just caused the call center was getting slammed all the time. All these, what would seem like such a simple thing, especially this particular thing that this chatbot is showing, was a major had major consequences across the entire organization, which is kind of weird to think about, but it's true.
Right. I'm going to give my video another attempt here. I think there was an issue with my mic, which I should have fixed now. We do have a question here from David. Is rebranding available? It is. You might have to go with the higher level of our plans, but you can rebrand your chatbots so that they have your branding on them. Another advantage of chatbot-based systems is that even though they have all of these great advantages of the human-based systems, even though they can address complex queries, and even though they are engaging like a human-based system, they are cheap. Levi, is my voice coming through okay now?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yep.
So they are cheap. They are cheap, just like a regular text-based system, because at the end of the day, a bot is a piece of software. So a single bot can handle millions of queries at the same time. You are literally going to need one bot customer support agent to handle almost, like as we were mentioning before, 70-80% of the queries that come to your human customer support system. And what that means is for the price of a single software subscription, you can automate away a lot of your customer support woes. And that is a completely unsubtle plug for the TARS Builder, by the way. You guys should totally go sign up. Or actually wait around until the end. We do have an offer for you guys, since you guys are attending this webinar in particular, that you guys can take up on the customer support issue. But the main takeaway from this slide is that customer support chatbots are a cheap way of going about customer support. Now they're not going to be as cheap as a text-based system, which is just an HTML page, but they are the cheapest way to achieve an engaging system, engaging customer support experience, and one that can address complex queries. So if that's useful to you guys, definitely something to consider. And of course, perhaps the main advantage, especially in the current in the current moment, is that they're always available. Like we mentioned earlier, with the example of Arkin and Irma, chatbots are always available. Regardless of what happens, they are living on an AWS server, an Azure server somewhere in the world. And hopefully that server hasn't gone down. If it has gone down, then we probably have more serious issues to deal with, because companies like Amazon and Microsoft put a lot of effort into making sure the servers stay up. So if something's gotten even past their capacity, then we know something's wrong with the world. So
you probably don't need customer support anymore.
Right, exactly. We've probably devolved into complete chaos. Yeah, customer support chatbots don't really get disrupted by much. They don't need to go to sleep. They don't ever fall sick. They don't need to social distance at home. They're always available. And that can be super valuable in helping. Again, these bots are made to assist your human customer support agents. They can help them pick up the slack when something does happen, and when those human customer support agents need to address more serious issues, even on a personal level, like we're dealing with right now. Of course, you guys might be wondering why you should believe us, and we've already given you an indication of how we can actually go about doing this, or why we actually know this to be the case. It's because we've done this before, and more specifically, Levi's done this before. So usually what we do at this point in time is we jump into a live build, and we can still do a live build, but I think since Levi is here and because he's such an invaluable resource, I figured we pull up some of Levi's chatbots and take a look at what they look like and talk to him about how he went about making them. Because as I mentioned earlier, if you can address the customer support issues of a DMV, you can pretty much address the customer support issues of any business out there. For the people who aren't based in the US, the DMV is essentially the place where you go to get licenses. It's where you go to get your car registered. I'm pretty sure everywhere in the world, the experience that you have going to the DMV equivalent, I know in India they're called the RTOs, is bad. In fact, I know that it is, having gone to one in multiple countries. It's universally bad. So we're talking about dealing with perhaps the worst customer support experience on the face of this planet. And before we move over to Levi's chatbots, we have a question over here that says, does STARS have a visual flow designer for creating chats? We absolutely do. That's pretty much, that's our entire product. So we'll probably get into that in just a bit over here, but I'm gonna pull up Levi's chatbots, and then we can maybe talk through it. Also, guys, leave your question and answers in the Q&A section. We'll be sure to answer them. Also, while we are going through Levi's chatbots, if there's a particular feature that you like, if there's a particular feature that you want to see implemented, let us know in the Q&A or let us know in the chat, and we might actually open up the TARS builder and show you how you can implement something like that in your customer support system. So over here we have the main DMV page. So if you're in Montana and you want to find out something about how to get your license, how to register your vehicle, anything that involves the DMV, you come to this web page to get more information. And as you can see, prominent placement on the page is this chatbot. Levi, do you want to tell us what is going on here and how this came about?
Sure. So yeah, so I mean, this story is pretty good. I gotta truncate it because we're getting closer to the top of the hour. But when I first joined the DMV as that writer, one of my jobs was to update information on the website. Well, the website was like nothing what you see right now. It was literally text down a page, and the homepage had everything from locations of headquarters with a Google Map embed to all the like bureau chiefs and administrator. Um, I mean, they basically tried to link every single thing they could possibly think of in the homepage. And it was just this huge wall of text. And everybody absolutely hated it. Like they could not find the information they needed. Um, our call center was getting hammered. And of course, every time you call the call center, the first thing they say is, have you looked at our website? Which would get people really angry because they said, of course I looked at your website. It's unusable. I can't find anything that I need. It is the worst experience ever. Um, and so what would happen is actually the people would go into the field stations where they would go to renew their license or whatever. And when I first started, this was a regular occurrence. Somebody would come through the doors and start screaming at the staff immediately,
We've all
top
been
of
there.
their lungs, like, yeah. And it only seems to happen at the DMV. Like you rarely see people reacting this way everywhere else, but at the DMV, it was like constant, right? Every day somebody would come through those doors screaming at them. And at least once a month, the police had to be called because they were so irate. That's a pretty good indicator that there's something wrong with your customer service. And my first impulse was, well, we're not communicating well with them. The website is broken, and the call center is flooded with calls, so no, everybody's on hold forever. How can we fix this? Long story short, I decided to redesign the website. I'm not a web designer, so I taught myself. And what you're seeing here is what I did. So this is my first website redesign, and even like the signs over there, I built in Photoshop. I taught myself some Photoshop along the way. But while that was happening, I wanted a solution that would help step users through complicated processes. And that's how I really found TARS and Chatbots in the first place. And the second I saw the technology and I saw the visual builder, I said it. I spent like 10 minutes with it, maybe an hour, I don't know. And I said, this is the future. This is going to change everything. And then from there, I was just obsessed with it. I spent 3 months working on this whole system and the website too. So I was designing this website from scratch, building a chatbot from scratch. And really, this is one of the most complex chatbot builds I think that exists on the TARS platform. And when it's all said and done, I think there's over 30 chatbots working together to make this all come together. And there's about 1,000 interaction points spread across all of them.
So
So
when you
it's
say
massive.
there are 30 chatbots, that means that if I click on this, for example, okay, yeah, it does open up in a completely new
Yeah.
chatbot.
And the idea behind this is we use that conversational landing page to focus the user on their actual subject they want to solve and
Right.
take away the website distraction. So now they're going to drive right to their answers and solve their problems. So this is what we saw in that GIF before. Um, very common services that are offered through the DMV with conditions attached to help them navigate through situations that may occur that come up a lot in the call centers. This is why I love chatbots, and particularly no-code visual builders that TARS has had for since the inception essentially, and now we see a lot of other companies out there kind of doing the same concept. Is the business layer, it removes the coding, it removes the programming, and now you're at the business layer of your customer support. And guess what? Your employees know the business layer, you know the business layer. This is where you live all day long. So you're already prepped and ready to build a customer support chatbot. You know how to talk to your customers, you know what they're asking. That's what it's all about. So that's what happened with the DMV's chatbot. Essentially, I listened to customers because I was a remote worker in a field office, so I could hear them talking about all the issues they had with the website. And I asked employees that were actually working in the field, what questions, how would you go about doing this? What information do we need to know for this? And that's how I built this whole thing. It was very grassroots, very in the trenches solution. And because of it, it really addressed customer needs, and it gave them a great outlet to find the information they needed and to step through those processes. Because especially with government, it's complex. It's always complex. To renew your license required in the old version with just the website, you had to go to at least 3 or 4 different web pages. Who
Right.
the heck is going to follow that
Right.
process
Right.
and get it right? They're
And
just not.
often I find in the
So
case of government in particular, a lot of the times it either ends up in a loop where one web page refers you back to the previous web page, or you end up in this really ugly looking PDF at the end. And you have to read through this entire PDF to find the specific piece of information that you are looking for in some obscure corner of the PDF. Um,
and
and in the
typically
example that
on
we
your
have over here, sorry, what was that?
I said, and typically on your phone, which makes it even worse because PDFs are not mobily friendly at
Right,
all.
right. Absolutely. Absolutely. This is something people don't talk about. A lot of the times people are designing their web pages, they're designing their customer support systems um, around people on desktop because that's where you're building it. And you kind of forget about people who are using it on a smaller screen, which is most people today. And I think this flow over here is actually a perfect example of how you can get around the issue of people jumping between different resources. So over here, for example, I've gone down the flow to help me renew my license if I were a Montana resident. And it said that the license has to have not exceeded 3 months. The expiration date should not have been more than 3 months ago. And then I clicked the my license expired 3 months ago option, and it said, oh, that means you have to retake the written test and driving test. And instead of redirecting me to a different page, it takes me directly in the conversational flow to the section that addresses issues relating to retaking and retaking the test, essentially getting a new license.
Yep.
So it's a very seamless handoff over here. Now, Levi, a question I have for you, which I think a lot of our viewers might have, is if they have never built a customer support chatbot before, what is the first step? How do you get started with something like this? Because obviously every single company has a different set of questions that people are asking, a different set of queries. So is there a generalizable way you can approach something like this?
Yeah, so I mean, for really all you have to say is what is my main services, what are my main products, what is it that my website, most people have a website, so what is it that my website serves, the main product, service, or information that it's delivering? That's where you start, right? That's your global view, and this is actually a writer's approach. Funny enough, when I was in college studying writing, professional and technical writing, so very applicable writing styles and techniques. One of the things that I learned very early on is that as a writer, you want to start very global, and then your goal is from that global view to slowly filter down to the surface level. And by doing that, you don't get caught up in where the comma goes in a sentence. You are looking at a bigger picture, and then you end on where the comma goes or the word you're going to choose at the very end, but the whole structure is built out.
Right.
Same exact concept with a chatbot. You're looking at the global view, what you're offering your customers, what you're trying to help them with, and then you filter down. So as far as customer support chatbots go, you're filtering down by the conditions that apply based on the situation. So
Right.
if it's a product, well, there may be some conditions with that product, like it only works this way, or you don't want to buy this if this applies. Well, it's pretty hard to explain that in an FAQ and get users to see it. So you just ask them, what of these conditions apply to you while purchasing this, if you're going to purchase this product. That helps you then direct them to the right information. So that's really what it's all about. You're
Right.
starting at a global view, understanding the conditions and context that apply to each of those, and then just placing it into the chatbot and branching the user based on those conditions and context. It's it's actually pretty simple. It does take a lot of time if you're building. I mean, this one is really complex. Like I mentioned, it's the whole system's over is about 1,000 interaction points, so it's significant. That's why it took 3+ months to build and optimize. But you can still do like 100 interaction points, and that's significantly less time. It's even not even that much time to compared to building a website. You can deploy these chatbots super quick, and they can be very, very specific to some conditions and whatnot. And it's very easy to hand them off to, a live, or well, not a live agent, but it's easy to hand them off to your customer support if their query is too complex, or if it doesn't quite handle their specific situation. No problem. What's your name, what's your email, what's your phone number. That report goes off to a customer service rep, and they can then take over from there and solve that
Right.
particular problem. And we're talking like nearly instantaneously. So when we're talking on the DMV side, they had no way to accept online submissions, period, until
Right.
the chatbot system came in, and then it automated their entire online submission. And not only that, but it took it the users by their specific subject and some conditions or context to that subject that applied to them, and then it would send their information to a specialized representative that dealt with those specific subjects. So they went from having like 4 emails, that was the only way you could contact online or digitally, was
Right.
by sending it unstructured email to I don't know how many desks they had and how many customer support agents they had, but we're talking all vehicle stuff, all driver stuff, the call center, driving records, like all of this stuff, right? There's all these different customer support agents. They're just really hard to get a hold of. And then the chatbot totally solved that problem and started filtering right to the correct desk, to the right people, and it dramatically changed how everything was handled on the customer service side, and it significantly increased customer satisfaction, which went from basically 0 to well, this particular chatbot was pulling a 4 out of 5 star rating, which is fantastic for government. I mean, government technology doesn't get that kind of rating almost ever. So we went from miserable experience to, what would most people would consider at least a good experience, and just by using chatbots.
Right. And a couple of points to note, to speak to what you were just saying, Levi. First of all, since we're getting to the top of the hour right now, if you are a smaller company, you don't need to build out the complex flow. You don't need to at least start out with the complex flow. This flow that Levi built, which consists of like 30 plus chatbots, 1,000 plus interaction points, exists because the DMV has so much information to share. If you're a smaller company, all you need is a couple of FAQs in your lead generation flow, or a couple of FAQs on your website, and you should be good to go. So for example, over here, we created this chatbot in one of our previous webinars as a demo. The law firm doesn't actually use this chatbot. We just created it as a demo using their existing landing page. And as you can see, the customer support flow over here is supplemental to the lead generation flow. So if I click on get a free consultation over here, so the first branch, get a free consultation, will lead you down a flow that captures all of your details. But if you hit the I have a question branch, like I did over here, it takes you down to a set of questions that get answered. And this is essentially a customer support flow. And the way we approach the creation of these questions is we looked through the landing page. We tried to figure out what the most common queries that people might have are, the basic things about the company that a lot of people want to know. And we tried to incorporate them over here. Now, as people who run your own businesses, who run your own customer support operations, you probably know what tickets people are generating. You have a good sense of those 5 or 6 queries that people ask all the time. They're super easy to respond to, and you're almost robotically responding to them on email or in chat or on the phone. We'll take those common queries and encode them into your chatbot, just like we did over here, to ensure that at least those questions get answered. And usually what we've ended up, what we found is that when people take that approach, they can automate away maybe 50, 60% of the queries that come their way. So people get those queries troubleshooted on the spot. And it doesn't hit your human agents, or it doesn't hit your FAQ, which leads to frustration, and then it hits your human agents. It gets resolved on the spot. And to answer the person who asked a question earlier about whether we have Visual Builder, we do, and this is what it looks like. Now, really quick, Levi and I think are going to stay on for a couple of more minutes, but I know we said this was going to be an hour-long session, so I'm sure a lot of you guys do have to head out. I know people are in different time zones. We are actually giving you guys an offer. This is something that popped up at the last minute because we were discussing it on our Slack group today. So we don't even have a dedicated web page for this, but we were thinking that since you guys have shown interest in customer support chatbots, and a lot of you guys seem to be existing TARS users, we are running an offer right now just for you guys, where for a one-time $99 payment, someone from the TARS team will build out an entire customer support flow for you. So all you need to do is send us your requirements, send us your web page, send us the information that we need to build out the flow, and then we'll handle the rest. And that's a $99 one-time payment. And the way you can avail this offer, since we came up with this sort of at the last minute, is that you can click on the, first of all, sign up for our builder. You can do that at hellotars.com. So I'll just go there right now so you can see what that looks like. It's a purple landing page. You'll see my face on the front because there's a video which I feature. Right here, sign up for our builder using the green sign up button in the top right. I don't know if you can see it over here. Let me see if I can. First time I'm using the annotate function, but sign up using the green sign up button in the top. And then once you are signed up, what you can do is in the builder, click on the blue intercom widget in the bottom right, and you can reach out to us over there. Just let us know that you came for the webinar, you want to take us up on our customer support bot offer, and our agents will know exactly what you are talking about. Our customer success agents will know exactly what you are talking about. With that, you guys, I'm sure, have other things to do. Levi and I might stay on for a couple of more minutes to maybe take some of those other bots if you guys want to stay on. Thank you guys for attending.
Yeah, there's some, definitely. Yeah, thanks everybody for attending. If you do want to stick around, there is some pretty cool stuff we can show, because what we showed was just such a tiny sliver of what this whole system does. But there's some really cool stuff. Like, what I would actually like to talk about is the fee calculator, because this is one of the biggest features that most used feature. It is on the Montana Real ID website, which a lot of people here probably don't know what exactly this entails, but this fee calculator serves this as well as the main chatbot system on the DMV's main page. And it is definitely the most used resource, and it is like really highly rated. And it took what used to be a table chart or multiple table charts that were embedded on the web pages, where you had to like go, I'm this old and these conditions apply, and try and track them to the cost of your license. And they weren't very accurate, and people were really frustrated. And this fee calculator changed that whole thing. So this is a great example of using a customer support chatbot to answer maybe what would seem like a not as complex query, but one that the call center receives a lot, and the field agents receive a lot. How much is this going to cost me? And they even have a hard time answering it, right? Because there's a lot of fees and there's some percentages that come into it and stuff like that. Plus, um, there's these other situations. So, like you were showing in that initial chatbot with the GIF, it asks there if your license is expired, but this fee calculator makes those determinations for you. So if your license was actually expired, it would have said, your license is expired. I can't give you a cost. You need to renew it. Would you like to, or you need to get a new license? Would you like to follow um, that that process, and we'll step you through it. So this fee calculator does so much more, and it's really a great example of a complex set of queries to answer a very specific question, which is based off of the user's input, the user's conditions.
Right. So we have a couple of questions over here. One question is, how many steps do you do for the $99 bot? I'm not quite sure what you mean by steps. I'm assuming how complex do you make the chatbot? We understand that most companies have very different needs when it comes to chatbots. So send us your webpage. We'll take a look at it and we'll see what applies best to it. And then we'll implement that. We don't really have an issue implementing some more complex systems if required. I don't know if they'll be as complex as the system that Levi's built out over here. The systems that Levi's built out over here. But honestly, most companies don't need a system that's as complex as this, because, well, they're not the DMV.
Yeah.
They're not dealing with systems that complex. So send us your webpage. We will, in 99.9% of the cases, build it out to the complexity that you are expecting.
And I would say, if you're looking at complex builds, that's something that you really want to put some time and planning in and back and forth. It's a whole different thing. So if we're talking like big corporation, enterprise level stuff, those are just a longer process and a little bit different concept than what we're discussing in that deal today.
Right. So as you can see over here, I've actually gone through the calculator flow that Levi was talking about. It is calculating very specific fees for the individual parameters that we give it. So in the first fee calculation, I said that I was just changing the status of a current standard license. I said that I'm changing it on today's date, and I gave it the expiration date of my current license, and it calculated a fee of $61.80. I calculated another fee where I said that I was renewing a license, that I'm 24 and that I don't have a motorcycle endorsement. And over here, as you can see, it calculated a very different fee, which is $41.72. Now, these numbers over here are way too specific and way too granular to be coded in. I'm pretty sure you're using an API integration over here, Levi, to make these calculations. But they really go to show how you can make a regular text-based system, whereas Levi was saying you'd be dependent on a table, which people have to like go through and check which row and column applies to them, and then cross-reference that with another table into a pretty seamless.
And once again,
just click a bunch of buttons.
Yeah, and that table once again wouldn't work on your mobile device,
right? Because it's in a PDF.
Yep, still inaccessible by what most people are trying to use to access the information.
Right, you're like pinching to zoom, checking, making sure, and then of course you can make errors when you're going through that, which is definitely an issue. Awesome. So let's jump back to the. So this is the Levi. Talk me through what's going on over here. What is this chatbot and this website?
Yes, so this particular chatbot, we call this actually a conversational website. So the idea behind this was the chatbot and the website work together. So if a user interacts with elements on the website, like just this next section down or up now, well, we already did the fee calculator, but if you go up to the next section above it and scroll up, there we go. Go click find a location. So to too far. There we go. Yep. The chatbot is actually triggered by web elements. So you can trigger the chatbot. Something seems to be frozen. Is your whoa? Okay, yeah. Anyways, so when I think that was just streaming video was timing out a little bit there. So when you click a button, click a image, click a hyperlink, the chatbot launches from that curated position and delivers the information. So find a location doesn't start at the main menu. It goes straight to here's a custom Google embed map with all the locations where you can get this particular license in Montana. And this map can give you directions. It'll show you business hours, all that stuff. So now we're talking about like really, really tapping some potential here where
But
your
this is
customer
really cool.
service.
You've actually embedded the entire map over here with the specific locations, and then
entire map. Yep, with all the custom
information
points,
about each of
and
the
every
locations.
single point has the business hours, and can Google can help you. Yep, and you click that top right little sign with the arrow on it. That would give directions to that particular location through Google Maps. So I mean, we're talking like really, really getting granular with how we give or how we present customer service, and almost turning it to a live agent,
Right,
feel, right? So
right.
it's just so specific, so exact in what you're trying to accomplish and the information you're delivering, that we're really starting to creep towards more of a human-like interaction, human capabilities with this particular build. And it's definitely my favorite. I show it every time I demo the product because I just love the concept of it, right? It takes that static form, that static form of a website that we've been dealing with for decades, and it starts adding a highly engaging and interactive experience through the chat. You don't have to go to new web pages. You don't have to send them to this new tool over on, this application or whatever. It just all opens up in the chatbot. Once they use it once, they totally get the experience and how it works, and they can move through it. And it's handling pretty complex stuff like this automated document experience.
Right.
That was a very hard thing for people to get through, because it was once again like a giant list of stuff that you could
Right.
use to get a license, and there's multiple steps, and if you don't have this, then it doesn't apply, and all these things that come into it. So the chatbot handles all of that for the user and lets them know if they can apply in the first place.
I mean, I've been in that exact position where I've been looking for the documents that I need to take into the DMV, and it was definitely extremely hard. The California DMV did not make it easy for me. Really
Yeah.
quick, before people drop off, so as you can see at the top over here, this chatbot is not powered by TARS, it's powered by Sky Civic. So I figured I'd give Levi and actually myself an opportunity to talk about this real quick. So Sky Civic is, it's a, you can think of it as a sister company to TARS essentially. We deal primarily with government-related chatbots, and Levi, you spend most of your time on Sky Civic now, right? In terms of
Yeah.
yeah,
back and forth. I mean, whenever it's a private sector consideration, then I'm on as a TARS consultant, chatbot specialist. Sky Civic is the founders of TARS, along with me and you, are all founders of Sky Civic, and we're trying to bring this technology to the public sector, just like the DMV, but also this our COVID-19 chatbot based on the
right,
CDC guidelines, all these things where we can rapidly present information to citizens. This is something that matters a lot to me, and I think it matters a lot to everybody,
right,
whether you're in the United States or beyond. Our government transparency, government access is something we really, really, really are all looking for. And I think chatbots are that next evolution to give that to
right,
citizens and make government accessible and transparent and all those things.
right.
So thank you for the shout out. Yes, this is our other focus with this chatbot platform.
If you guys have a government service, which I'm 100% certain you do, that you don't like, let us know. We'll try to see if we can get in on that service with our chatbots. And really quick, as Levi mentioned, we've actually created in the way we've been processing this entire crisis is we've been reading up a bunch um, about the coronavirus crisis, and we have been synthesizing that information into chatbots. So we've actually built a set of COVID-19 related chatbot templates that you are free to distribute with your customers if they want more information. So you can go to hellotars.com/chatbot-templates, or just go to our website. In the top, you should be able to click on chatbot templates. And once you go here, click on the coronavirus or COVID-19 use case. And it'll show you all of our COVID-19 related chatbots. Currently, we have 3. One tracks the number of cases that are there in your particular region. So over here, for example, if I select the United States, it'll tell me the specific numbers relating to the US, which are getting crazier by the day. We have another one which answers FAQs about the COVID-19 crisis. So we did a bunch of reading and we sort of encoded all of those learnings into this FAQ bot over here. And finally, we worked with a hospital to actually build out a screening flow to sort of automate the screening process for COVID-19 to maybe perhaps reduce the number of people who actually have to go into a hospital and put themselves at risk. If you actually work in the healthcare services industry, reach out to us again through the, let me see if I can find it. Yeah, reach out to us through the, yeah, I know. And this isn't even half the number of tabs I usually have open. Reach out to us through the intercom widget, and we'll be more than happy to help you get set up with one of these chatbots. We are making them open to everyone right now. We just want this to be accessible to healthcare providers, healthcare workers, in case they need it. But we'll be more than happy to share this stuff with you guys if you do work in the healthcare industry for free. So let us know. I think with that, we are pretty much done with our session for today. Thank you guys for joining us. Really quick, if you want to reach out to us through any other ways other than through the intercom widget in our builder, you can call us on this number over here. You can reach out to us on email, or you can go to our website and find out more information over there. It's been a pleasure hosting this webinar for you guys. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Have a great day.